Good morning to you, Brad.
Frank, good morning. It looks very sunny where you are as well as where I am, which is a real positive start to the day and links directly to what we want to talk about, I think.
We were establishing that we want to talk a little bit about happiness. Happiness, also because of in the past we've been looking a lot at, the let's call it just some of the more miserable aspects of what could happen to you and how can you deal with that and so on. But let's dedicate a few moments on trying to discuss what it actually is, happiness, and how can you actually build towards being happy.
And when you say that, Frank, let's just qualify right at the beginning. This isn't about the neuroscience of feeling happy. This is about how do we become happy so we can enjoy our lives, right? It's not just about the way our neurons are wired, although for some people it might be, right?
Correct. It would be that also, to be honest, there's not much to be learned from that other point of view. Let's rather focus on the becoming happy part, not so much about the feeling happy.
I've always found it a fascinating topic to think about. How do we make it so that when I wake up in the morning, I feel happy? When I go to bed at night, I feel happy. If I stop myself during the day, I can feel happy. And I wonder, in your experience, when you think about this topic, is there a secret source, do you feel, to happiness? Some people have it, others don't, or do you feel we can all touch happiness in our lives?
Well, I would say it's completely possible to, almost no matter what your current state is and maybe your history, to actually work on becoming happy. So I don't think it's the one thing.
And when you say that, what it triggers for me is actually how individual it is for all of us. Because I believe in order to be happy, I have to acknowledge, first of all, what makes me not happy. I have to be able to acknowledge that maybe the things I thought would make me happy actually don't.
Yes, I would also start from there, to be honest. It's much easier to be, mindful and self-aware about what are the things actually that don't feel right, that don't feel like they're contributing to my happiness and actually are doing the opposite.
Right. So when I'm young and growing up and I think, I want to have a partner, I want to get married, I want to live in a big house, I want a big job with a big salary, and I want these things and they'll make me happy. And actually, maybe they will for some, but maybe they don't for others. And we get trapped, don't we? We get trapped into what we think will make us happy. And actually what it does is it drains us of all our energy and actually does the opposite effect. It makes us sad.
That's right. And I think let's touch a little bit on money, because I think it's, money or anything that's wealth related, that money can buy. I think this is probably one of the biggest illusions for a lot of people. There's nothing wrong with making a lot of money, with being able to afford, luxuries. There's nothing wrong with that. But I think the illusion lies in that things or, luxury beyond what you need is an actual contributor to happiness, when there is, maybe you have to live a life over 30 years of a career, for example, like that, to really accumulate a certain wealth and so on, that you hate living.
Right. And when you say that, I remember a conversation 20 years ago with my brother, who was rising up the ranks of a PR and marketing company. And he was earning good money, but they wanted blood from him. They wanted 70, 80 hours a week. No life. So unless he was willing to sleep under the desk, for 6 hours a night, constant call, 24/7 on notice, emails pinging all times of the day and night from all over the world, when his manager pinged him, he had to respond. Actually, the greatest decision he made was when he looked in the mirror and he said, "This makes me miserable. I thought it would make me happy. My ideal job, the big salary, the living, in a nice apartment in London, in central London." And he gave it all up. And he's never been happier than when he gave it up. The moment he woke up the next morning,
Yeah.
So when you said it resonates so much, I wonder how many people, even watching this, are trapped in that world where they think they're doing things to make them happy, but they're doing the opposite.
Yes, and actually, I can almost tell you, I don't think actually, I'm not aware of a global survey for this, but there are several ones that were conducted in the EU, or some that only in the United States, and they vary a little bit, but the result is that between 70 and 90% of people hate what they're doing for a job. That's really a lot. And even if it would only be the lower one, even if it would be only 70%, that's catastrophic. It's 70% of the people that spend the largest part of their life doing something that they hate.
Right.
And for a large part, for the let's say for the ones that are really more on the big money side, that still feel that they hate what they're doing, they're only doing it for the money. Maybe they're also doing it for the wrong reason. A lot of people work their butts off to afford a huge house with 6 bedrooms and an expensive car. For what? Probably to impress their neighbors or people that they may not even like anyway.
Right. I know when you say it out loud, it sounds almost ridiculous, right? So I work all day. I spend 60 hours a week at work, somewhere I don't like being, somewhere I don't enjoy what I'm doing, to pay for a mortgage on somewhere I don't spend any time in.
Yes. So, and then there's everything is wrong with that.
Right.
So to give it a little twist, how could you discover what actually is making you happy?
Well, that's like the real question, right? Is how do you pinpoint what is? And for me, it's where it drives towards honoring myself and being really honest and trying to find a way that is congruent in what I want to do in the world, why I'm here, and honoring that purpose of why I'm here, what I'm trying to do, and finding a path that allows me to bring in the minimum amount I need in order to honor that purpose. And I think you have to ask some really hard and tough questions here, because this is about, Frank, it's great for us to sit here and say, the people who want to have the big house or they want to do all of this, but actually the fact is, for some people, they still have to work and they need to earn money.
Absolutely.
And actually, there are a lot of people, we see it at the moment, don't we, with COVID, when we think of nurses who are working tough jobs, and we know that they don't earn anywhere near those big bucks that you're talking about. And so there's this gap between the vocational world of, what I'm drawn to do, that purpose of, do I want to help people? To the other side of, do I want to sort of maybe take a job in working in finance, maybe, to see if I could sort of earn the big 6-figure salaries a year. And so the starting point has to be to look in the mirror and say, what do I want? What do I really want for me? So when I get up in the morning, what's going to make me jump out of bed and go, I can't wait to go to work today? Because then it doesn't matter what you're earning. It's about, do you want to go to work? What's going to make your soul soar and feel as though this is something I want to be doing? When you're on the bus going in, or you're sitting in traffic for the 4th day running, does it matter? Because what you're going to do makes you feel great. It's that purpose. I don't know if you feel the same, or maybe that's just in my head.
No, look, I think you're 100% on the spot. I'm sure there are wealthy business people and somebody who, I don't know, has a much, simpler job, maybe does something, I don't know, maybe is a cashier at a supermarket. And both of them, you will probably find businessmen that actually hate what they're doing because they're doing it for the wrong reason. And you can have the cashier who hates what they're doing because it doesn't play to any of their strengths, they feel undervalued, and so on and so forth. But I'm quite sure you'll also find the cashier that loves what they're doing because of this social connection they have. Maybe not, they don't get a huge salary, but on the other hand side, they have time when the work ends to actually care about their family or do whatever they love. And there's also the businessman who works 12 hours, 16 hours a day, who just loves what they're doing. He may be happy. All of that exists. So the key is in figuring out, what is it that I want to get up for? What is it that if I do it, I don't even realize how time is passing and I feel good all the time? Is there something like that? And I don't want to judge about what it is. It just needs to work for you.
And this is for me where you need to, in a more holistic way, and perhaps what the world of COVID has done for everybody with lockdowns in various forms in different countries and forcing us to work from home or be, furloughed off from work so we're not actually having to work, is maybe we need to really reconsider before everybody rushes back. What are we rushing back to? Because what you described to me and summarized is true happiness comes from uniting the body and the soul. Actually finding a connection between your head and your heart, what you think you want to do with what you actually really love to do. So whether it is the cashier who loves the social connection, or it's the business person who enjoys working for 12 hours a day because it doesn't feel like work.
It's what he loves.
Right. And I know I can really empathize with that because I love development work. I love coaching. I love training workshops. And for the 25 plus years that I have, been involved in this work, I have loved my job. I love what I do. Sometimes it's really tough. Long hours, early starts, lots of flying everywhere. But I'm happy because it doesn't feel like work. So I really hear what you're saying. I suppose the question that we're posing here is, what happens if you're stuck in the role where you don't have that happiness, where you don't feel that joy, where it does feel like you're watching the clock? And it's like, oh, it's only 10 minutes since I last looked, and it's still another 4 hours to go before I can leave. It's for these moments that I'm thinking, how can we maybe help them? How could we offer them some questions, some pointers that would help them reevaluate, readjust to maybe take a leap of faith and find and touch the happiness we're talking about?
Yeah, I'd love to say something to that, but previously you said something, just want to add something to, and that is, so I often speak with people, friends, that express a wish of how they would love that their life would change. And quite often, actually, to be honest, I hear, I want to travel the world. And I'm always very careful actually encouraging that, because it's very often it sounds more like that's just your way to escape what you're actually doing every day that kind of makes you miserable, but it is not necessarily the thing you want to keep doing all the time. It's just for you, that's a way to get away. But that's not, I don't think you have thought about this hard enough. That's what I mean. So I think there's a lot of, we need to evaluate ourselves a little bit when we say instinctively, all right, this is going to make me happy. I think you need to let this sit for a while, for a little while, and really discover, is this for me for running away from the stuff that I don't like, or is this actually the thing that I want to put all my energy in for a continued period of time? So that's,
Frank, there may be an extra layer to that as well, because
Yeah.
I know from even friends that I have who say these things, at my age now, 20 years ago when they were saying these things, it was fine.
Yeah.
Now, when they're saying these things and they have 2 or 3 kids at school or university and they have responsibilities, actually, they can't just pack up and go and travel or leave a job and do something that doesn't help them pay the bills or that responsibility. And I think sometimes that also gets in the way
Yeah.
of people feeling happy.
Yes, that's a good transition to the, what can we tell people when they're feeling stuck
Right.
in this? I think there may be some hard circumstances that make you actually stuck, but I don't think there's such a thing as being stuck forever. I think if you know there's another experience or kind of life that you want to live than the one that you're living now, you can start to build your way towards it. Even if so a lot of people saying, okay, but I'm working a lot, I don't have time to build out the idea that I have for myself, which I quite sure is going to make me happy. This would be the happier life. So they say I'm not even starting. But I think maybe you need to break these things down. If you have something that's not achievable right away, some things are achievable right away, but a lot of the things that matter maybe are not so easy anymore in your moment of time in your life. So figuring out what could be a way for me to reinvest some of the time that I have into slowly building to where I want to be. And a lot of people have much more time than they think. They're just wasting it on things that are not helping them achieve their dream.
Right.
Of course, it's nice to watch Netflix every evening for 3 hours. But in those 3 hours, you could also, begin to learn new skills. You can, I don't know, maybe, don't have enough social life, and maybe that's the missing bit for you, for your happiness. You can reinvest into creating a social life, and so there are probably a million examples I could take. But my point is, you probably are just investing your free time in the wrong way. Stop all that and invest it into getting to where you want to be in terms of the things that make you happy.
Or investing some of that time. I remember watching a wonderful interview with Arnold Schwarzenegger from a couple of years ago. And he was talking about his early days in trying to become a Mr. Universe.
Yes.
And he had left Austria, he'd come to the US, he was a stranger in a strange land. And he was working in the gym 8 hours a day, and he was working a job in the evenings. And then when he would come home, he was learning English, and he was sleeping 5 hours a day, and using the other 18, 19 hours to do stuff. And he obviously has a great story because he rose to the top in everything he challenged, with actually limited skill per se, say as an actor, right? But the lesson I learned from him is he talked about, it's not about spending 5 hours, 10 hours, 3 hours, whatever it might be. It's about finding 10 minutes. And he gives this story where he says, let's say you want to learn about history. Let's say history is something you really love. What about if you committed to reading something about history for 10 minutes a day, every day? Imagine what you would learn in a week. And imagine what you would learn in a month. And imagine 3 years from now, if you were still reading for 10 minutes a day, something about history, what you would know. And then 5 years from now. And in 10 years, how much knowledge you would have and how happy you would be that you'd invested just 10 minutes a day. And it's to your point, where do I focus my energy? Maybe you like watching box sets, but maybe 3 hours is too much. Do 2 hours and find 1 hour for something else that you also really like, that adds something to how you feel about yourself. Because what you're really talking about here, Frank, for me, is how we feel about ourselves. You're talking about fundamental self-esteem.
Absolutely. And I love this approach. Also in the context of this, I don't know, if you want to achieve something, it's quite hard, do something, just get 1% better every time, don't, and because you'll arrive there in so much shorter time. People are so impatient with themselves. They want everything right away. But their life is very, very long. Even when you're 65 years old, you still probably have 15, 20 years to live. At least that's what I would assume. That's an awful amount of time. If you want to learn a new skill, if you do this bit by bit and give yourself a little time with the consistency that you were having in this example, you'll get there. You'll absolutely get there.
Frank, my mother is 75 years old and in the lockdown has started to learn Latin and is translating books from Latin to English.
Who would have thought?
75. It's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. It inspires me. And when I say to her, how's it going? What are you translating today? She's smiling away. Now, she's on lockdown, she's part of that age group that has to stay inside and probably will still for some time. But she's found what makes her happy and she's doing it. And I think this is to your point, right? It doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter what stage you are in your life or how much money.
You probably have enough time.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
But you have to be committed to it. And you have to, first of all, know what it is that will make you happy and then commit to it.
Yes. I have a theory there also. I think that you can find your happiness by spending the most of your energy on what are actually your strengths versus trying to fix problems of the past where you can't go back to anyway. Other than forgiveness, I don't think there's much for you to do what the past is concerned. And rather focus on, don't try to be something because it's cool, but you don't have the strengths or the skills, to do this. Rather try to, build on the strengths that you already have. And with that, I don't really only mean career strengths or career related strengths. It can also be that you're just, maybe your strength is you're a very empathic person. You are good at, making new social connections and so on. If you do that because it's your strength, it will create an enormous amount of happiness for you just in your daily life. If that's just something you're not doing enough of, it's not even the question, can you commercialize that skill? It's the question is, does that make you happy, working on your strengths? And I think this is a great way to start, is to figure out, what am I actually good at? And don't think just career-related skills. Think skills, just things that you're good at, because more likely than not, these are making you happy when you do them. So build on them, become excellent in them, and maybe then at one point they can also be, used commercially or not, but it's not the point. The point is, do something that actually makes you happy and what you're good at, and that almost for sure is going to make you happy.
I think, in therapeutic practice, we use something called the wheel of life, where we have a wheel with 6 or 8 segments and we get people to write in, the key things, their family, their friendships,
right,
the things that they're doing in their world. And we ask them to score how happy they are with that section of their life. And it's so interesting, Frank, because most of the time what comes up is that they're not spending the quality time in the areas that they really want. And that's the reason why they don't feel happy.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense also. The proportions are off for a lot of people. It's probably okay to do something. It's probably also unavoidable to do something from time to time that you don't particularly enjoy. But if your timesheet shows a big spike in exactly that area, you have to reorganize that somehow. You need to find a way to reorganize how you spend the time on these kind of things.
And look, maybe for all of us, actually, as you just said, there are times when you just have to do stuff. get stuff done, and it's not pleasant.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about, the garden outside that needs doing, which I have to do later today, which I probably won't enjoy, and it will take 2 hours of my day to do it while the sun is shining. But what I'll do is I'll decide that what I will feel at the end of it when I look and I think, oh, okay, it looks pretty, and then I can enjoy the feeling afterwards, maybe not in the moment. This idea for me is, again, and you mentioned it before, it's the energy and the focus we're prepared to put in the present moment. It's not about living in the past. It's not about wanting to change the future. It's about being completely present. It's that attention and intention for me that allows me to be completely present. And maybe that's part of this kind of secret to happiness. Can I focus my attention? And then can I focus my intention? And by doing those two things, it doesn't matter who I am or where I am in my life, I should be able to touch what makes me happy.
Right. And to make it even simpler, I think the only thing that you need to remember is what you focus on grows.
Right.
That's the only thing that you actually need to remember, is when you're focusing on something that's somehow miserable or not good, then this becomes big in your life. But the same thing also is on the opposite side. If you focus on something, focus means spend energy and time on something that makes you happy. This will also become disproportionately big in your life after a while if you keep at it. And I think then happiness is a consequence.
Well, we've said before when we touched on anxious thoughts that you can't have a positive life with a negative mindset.
Yes.
They don't go together. So if we take the point that what we focus on grows, then it almost puts us all on notice that we have to look for the things that are positive in our life. And actually that for me is also, however bad anything might be, to try and source the positive experience from it. Because that, to your point of, what focus on grows, let me always look for the positive experience. So maybe I'm not feeling happy. Maybe I'm watching this and I'm actually not in a great place. How can I look for a positive to focus on? Maybe I don't have that mental capacity or that mental strength to just rewire and change how I'm thinking and looking at things. So for me, then it's about, is there one thing that we could get people just to focus on, to draw a positive out of every experience, and to focus on that one thing that helps draw them out of a negative mindset and helps encourage and foster a positive mindset, which helps develop that sense of happiness and well-being.
Yeah, that's right. I think a simple way of doing that is you need to allow yourself, have this awareness, of course, first of all, that you're just focusing right now too much on something that's dragging you down in a way. And then just allow yourself to take a couple seconds, probably only, to remember one thing that recently gave you a good feeling. And if you have any possibility, just try to do exactly that gave you that positive feeling right away, if you can, or the next possible opportunity. And it can be as simple as, I don't know, swimming a couple of lanes, or going out with a friend, or something like that. I think this is a way of getting away from it. Of course, it's short term. That's short term, I realize that, but it may have components of what actually contribute to your happiness. So focusing on them a little bit more will just make that part grow.
It seems as if we kind of touch on, almost in a circular way, 3 critical elements here around happiness. This idea of what we focus on grows, honoring our purpose and understanding what it is we really want to do that makes us happy. And the point that you were making about investing our time and energy in those things that make us smile and make us happy. Do you see those as kind of like the foundations of happiness, or would you summarize it differently?
I would add one thing, because as much as you grow something that makes you happy, you probably still carry a baggage. So I think the one thing that I would really recommend is for people who have something that has happened in the past to cancel all plans on how they deal with them, if they had to do with either revenge or finding justice in some form or something like that, but to let it go, just forgive it and move on. Easier said than done, I know, but that's how you lose something that's the weight around your ankle that's dragging you down for good. That's the only way I know which makes you lose that weight for good.
Maybe that's what we talk about next time, Frank. How do we learn to let go?
Sounds like a good one.
Is that a natural pause point, I think?
Yeah. Making a note. All right. No, I think we can conclude it. And, this time, I think there may be even a little bit more to talk about with regards to happiness. It's a huge subject. Even the things that we were summarizing, they leave a lot of questions open. I can already hear them. And I think they deserve addressing, because in the end, I want everybody to be happy.
I sense that was happiness part one. And I think there's another layer.
Guess so. All right.
Nice.
Good, Brad. Then we conclude. It was a good talk as always.